There was a video up of former President Barack Obama and our First Lady Michelle Obama and on True Social, and they were depicted as apes. The video was up for about 12 hours before it was taken down. And I wanted to share with you all the historical context of this in case you're not familiar, so you'll sort of understand why this is sort of a go-to, if you will. Okay, I'm going to just share some things with you. Black people depicted as animals, depicted as apes, is a deeply rooted racist trope with a long and violent history aimed at dehumanizing Black people. We know that President Obama went to Harvard. We know the First Lady went to Yale. But when we can have an image of them depicted in this animalistic way, it's a way of trying to tear them down and take away the essence of who they are, their intelligence and their capabilities. Origins of this ape trope goes all the way back to the 18th and 19th centuries with white supremacist ideology. Black people were falsely portrayed as biologically inferior, closer to animals than humans, and incapable of reason, civilization, and self-governance. We have moved on in our society largely from that, but when you look at sports in this era, you have had opportunities where Black quarterbacks were not hired because they were thought to not be able to think and process on the field in the heat of play, similar to white players. That is part of this deeply racist trope. They have linked this trope to European and American scientists Samuel George Morton and Josiah Nott, who promoted the lie. It was a lie, y'all, that Africans were evolutionarily closer to apes. And again, why was this the case? It was used to promote slavery and enslavement. It was to promote denying folks the right to read, own property, sexual violence as well, and forced labor and family separation. The imagery was not symbolic, it was ideological warfare. To depict the Obamas in that way in 2026, again, it goes back in the 19th and 20th century, Black people were regularly depicted as monkeys and gorillas or apes. You had minstrel shows, you had political cartoons, you had advertisements as well as children's books. The years and generations of depicting Black people as animals, it helps people to then think that Black people are less than human. And we all know that that's not true. Depicting Black people as apes also fed the lynching culture. Mobs felt justified in their torture and their killings. Photographs were turned into postcards. Those of you who were alive and voted for Barack Obama the first time or the second time, you should understand the real backlash of what his presidency meant. I remember growing up and people would say, oh, there'll never be a Black president. And for some people, that really fed this idea of superiority. But the moment that we had a Black president with all the swag, he was articulate and handsome and all these things that Obama is, that slapped a lot of people in the face with this idea that a Black person isn't articulate, a Black person isn't capable, a Black person cannot think. And then he was the head of the Harvard Law Review. He graduated from an Ivy League. Wait a minute, how is this possible? President Barack Obama's existence and success definitely threatens this idea of white supremacy. There is no higher office in the land or in the world than the President of the United States. So if a black man can hold that office, what is that saying? Our First Lady, Michelle Obama, has often been, called not feminine, masculine. In fact, people have talked about her in lots of ways as well. And again, this is a way to take away, to downplay, her intelligence, who she is, what she brings to the table, and her embodiment. And again, this is something that people do to sort of bolster this idea of white people being superior and black people being inferior. But again, graduate of Yale, she's clearly somebody of a force on her own to be reckoned with. But just I want you to understand where these kinds of tropes come from. People will look at these things and they'll think it's funny and they'll think it's a joke. But it's not a joke because it feeds terror and it feeds acts of violence. And so when I look at those things, it's not funny to me. It's not a joke to me. And I would encourage non-black folks to not think of it as funny as well. These are the types of imagery that people looked at when they were lynching people, or after they had lynched people. People have lost their lives. So this is serious business. Absolutely. 100%. And also, this type of imagery serves the notion that black humanity is up for debate. Like, we're not really human. Maybe we still are closer to apes or whatever. And we all know that is not true. The insult of portraying former president and former first lady as apes, it goes into just this negative backlash, voter suppression against black people, racism, discrimination, mass incarceration. It feeds this idea that black people are less than human. The imagery behind our first black president and our first black first lady is really meant to wound black people and instill fear into black people and remind us of the violent past that we've had in America. And yet, their very existence as the former president and the former first lady threatens white supremacy because they did something that people didn't think that black people could ever do. Understand that this is meant to hurt black people who in most cases haven't done anything to y'all. So just think about that. All right, y'all. That's one to grow on. Peace. See you next time.